Hey guys, tonight we're strapping on our ancient sand-worn sandals and taking a deep dive into one of humanity's most enduring mysteries, the Egyptian pyramids. Forget the Hollywood epics with CGI armies of anonymous, whip-cracked slaves, toiling away in a week-long montage. That's a nice story, but the reality, it was a grueling, generations-long slog of blood, sweat, and sheer mind-boggling human will. We're talking about projects that outlived the pharaohs who commissioned them, stretching on for decades like a cosmic game of Jenga played with mountains. So, if you've ever wondered why these colossal stone monuments didn't just pop up overnight like some ancient Egyptian flat-pack furniture, you're in the right place. Before we plunge into the dust and the grind, do me a solid. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and let me know where you're watching from. Now, dim the lights, silence your notifications, and let's get seriously dirty. The pharaoh's audacious dream, blueprinting eternity with brute force. You stand there, squinting under the relentless glare of the old kingdom's sun, a mere speck in a vast ochre landscape. The air shimmers, distorting the distant horizon where the Nile, the lifeblood of this ancient world, flows with indifferent majesty. Around you, the murmur of tens of thousands of voices, the rhythmic thump of tools, the braying of donkeys, and the pervasive scent of dust, sweat, and something vaguely metallic, perhaps the tang of human effort and the nascent rust of ambition. This isn't a quaint historical diorama. This is your reality. Right now, you are not a tourist, you are a participant, caught in the colossal machinery of what will become one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, before a single, monumental block of limestone was ever hewn from the earth, before the first groan of strained muscle echoed across the plateau. There was the dream, and what a dream it was. Imagine a pharaoh, a living god, gazing upon the fertile valley and then upwards, towards the eternal stars, contemplating his own place in the cosmos. His journey to the afterlife, he believed, demanded a monument that would not merely touch the sky but embody the very essence of eternity. A mountain of stone to house his immortal car and bar, ensuring his divine journey and the continued prosperity of his kingdom. This wasn't just a tomb. It was a cosmic launching pad, a spiritual landlord's permanent address, and an undeniable assertion of power, a middle finger to mortality. The first reason these pyramids took so long to build wasn't the actual lifting of stones, but the sheer, unfathomable audacity of the concept and the primitive, painstaking process of turning that concept into a tangible plan. There were no CAD programs, no laser levels, no drone surveys. What they had was observation, experience, and an extraordinary understanding of basic geometry and astronomy. You watch as men, not much older than yourself, yet already wizened by the sun and the weight of their purpose, meticulously lay out the site. They are astronomers, priests, and master masons all rolled into one. Their tools simple: plumb bobs, sighting rods, measuring ropes, and perhaps, most crucially, their own 2 eyes. You can practically feel the calculations happening in their minds, the geometric equations forming without the benefit of written calculus. The base of the pyramid had to be perfectly square, its sides aligned with the cardinal points, north, south, east, west, with an almost uncanny precision that beggars belief even today. How do you achieve this on a scale that dwarfs any modern building footprint? You don't just measure it. You observe the sun's rising and setting, tracking the stars, understanding the fixed point of Polaris long before telescopes. You drive stakes into the ground, stretch ropes taut over vast distances, and use the shadow of the sun at its highest point to mark true north. Each line, each corner, each degree of alignment wasn't a quick adjustment on a digital display. It was a series of iterative, meticulous observations, measurements, and corrections that could take weeks, even months, for just the foundational layout. A single miscalculation, a slight deviation of a few degrees, and the entire structure would be compromised. A lopsided disaster reflecting poorly on the pharaoh's very divinity. This wasn't just construction. It was a sacred ritual, each step imbued with spiritual significance. Then there was the surveying of the land itself. The Giza Plateau, while seemingly flat, isn't perfectly so. You need a stable, level foundation capable of supporting millions of tons of stone without shifting or cracking over millennia. Imagine leveling a playing field the size of several city blocks using only rudimentary tools. Water was your best friend here, or rather, its surface. You witnessed the painstaking process of digging shallow channels around the perimeter of the proposed base, filling them with water, and using the natural, unyielding level of the water to determine the high and low points. Then came the back-breaking work of carving away the highest sections of bedrock and filling the lower ones, creating a colossal, perfectly horizontal platform. This wasn't a quick, earth-moving operation. This was millennia-old rock being chipped, chiseled, and battered by men armed with copper chisels and stone hammers. Each tap, each crack, each pulverization of rock was a battle against geological time, a testament to the unyielding will of the pharaoh and the unyielding muscle of his subjects. And let's not forget the sheer administrative nightmare. Before a stone could be moved, before a ramp could be conceived, an entire empire had to be mobilized. You see scribes, their faces perpetually smudged with ink and dust, hunched over papyrus scrolls, meticulously recording everything: the allocation of resources, the number of laborers, the supply of grain for sustenance, the tools, the copper for chisels, the lumber for sledges and levers, the ropes woven from papyrus or flax. Every single piece of material, every mouth to feed, every tool to sharpen, had to be accounted for. Think about the logistics of feeding and housing tens of thousands of people in a desolate desert environment for decades. This isn't a small construction crew. This is a temporary city rising out of the sand, its very existence dependent on the efficient flow of goods and information from across the entire Nile Valley. The choice of quarry sites was another critical decision, a multi-year reconnaissance mission in itself. Where was the best quality limestone for the core? The finest white Tura limestone for the casing, the hardest granite for the burial chamber. You see expeditions dispatched up and down the Nile, men traveling for weeks, exploring rock faces, assessing accessibility, and estimating potential yields. Once identified, these quarries, often miles away from the construction site, needed to be developed. Roads had to be built, ramps constructed to access the rock faces, and temporary settlements erected for the quarry workers. This wasn't a matter of driving a truck to a gravel pit. It was an act of geological conquest, a slow, methodical assault on the very earth. The planning extended to the internal structure too. The king's chamber, the queen's chamber, the grand gallery, these weren't afterthoughts. They were integral to the initial design, requiring complex calculations for their placement. The precise angles of the descending and ascending passages, and the intricate system of relieving chambers above the king's burial vault, designed to distribute the colossal weight of the stone above and prevent collapse. These weren't sketches on a napkin. These were architectural blueprints painstakingly rendered on stone tablets or papyrus. debated and refined by the greatest minds of the era. Men who knew that a single miscalculation could doom the entire project and, by extension, the pharaoh's passage to the afterlife. You feel the weight of that responsibility, the chilling awareness that the entire cosmos, as they understood it, hinged on their accuracy. So, when you consider why the pyramids took so long to build, don't just think about the lifting. Think about the incubation period, the millennia-spanning dream that slowly, agonizingly, translated into a tangible, albeit primitive, plan. Think about the years spent just getting the canvas ready, perfectly aligned, perfectly leveled, ready for the first brushstroke of stone. It was a testament not just to their engineering prowess, but to their patience, their absolute, unwavering belief in the divine purpose of their work. You're not just watching history, you're feeling the ancient echoes of an empire's first, tentative steps towards eternity, steps measured in years, not days. Each one a testament to the slow, relentless march of human endeavor in an era utterly devoid of shortcuts. The sheer amount of planning, the surveying, the logistical blueprinting, the resource allocation across a fledgling empire. It wasn't just a part of the construction. It was the construction's quiet, invisible beginning, a beginning that itself consumed years, even decades, before the first visible signs of the monumental undertaking ever pierced the desert sky. You feel the sheer, overwhelming inertia of such a project, a force of nature driven by human hands. Engineering on the edge, ramps, ropes, and raw muscle, the climbing of Etenatuve, made it. The block, the very one you strained every sinew to pull from the quarry to the Nile, and then from the Nile to the base of the burgeoning pyramid, now lies at your feet. It's a nondescript block, one of millions, yet in its mass. You feel the crushing weight of history, the unyielding demand of a pharaoh's ambition. You look up, and the sight is both awe-inspiring and utterly soul-crushing. The pyramid is no longer a mere foundation. It's a monstrous, man-made mountain, its sides rising sharply, already piercing the blue sky. A testament to what collective human will, however forced, can achieve. But it also represents an insurmountable challenge, a colossal stairway to heaven that you, a humble worker, must climb with every single stone. This is where the true engineering marvels, born of necessity and brute force physics, come into play. The ramps, forget fancy scaffolding or modern cranes. You are looking at a system of ramps, constantly evolving, constantly being built and rebuilt around the rising structure. There are theories, of course, debated by scholars for centuries. A single, colossal, straight ramp, spiraling ramps hugging the pyramid's sides, internal ramps. But what you see, what you experience, is a ceaseless, monumental effort to lift these gargantuan stones, one after another, higher and higher, defying gravity with nothing but ingenuity, muscle, and a willingness to accept death as a daily possibility. You are part of a team responsible for building and maintaining these ramps. It's a separate project in itself, consuming immense resources. You watch as men haul debris, rubble, and mud bricks, millions of them, to constantly extend and raise the ramp. Timber, precious and difficult to obtain in Egypt, is used sparingly, mostly for supporting structures or as rollers beneath the sledges. The ramps are steep, relentless ascents, carefully calculated to be just manageable enough for human and animal strength, but never easy. The gradient has to be shallow enough to allow the sledges to be dragged up, yet steep enough to reach the apex of the structure as it grows. This is a constant balancing act, a trilateral approach refined over decades of grueling labor. You grab the thick papyrus rope, your calloused hands already aching from previous shifts. The block, still on its sturdy wooden sledge, waits at the foot of the ramp. You are one of a dozen, 2 dozen, sometimes even 100 men, depending on the block's size. The overseer shouts, a rhythmic chant that coordinates the effort. Heave, heave, pull. The collective grunt, the straining muscles, the biting ropes. These are the sounds and sensations of your day. You lean into the pull, your feet scrabbling for purchase on the uneven surface of the ramp, slick with mud, water, and the sweat of thousands who came before you. The air is thick with dust, not just the fine desert variety, but pulverized limestone, rising from the constant friction of the sledges and the endless pounding of hammers. It coats your lungs, making every breath a shallow struggle. The sun beats down, amplified by the reflection off the pale stone, creating an oven-like environment, where dehydration is a constant, terrifying companion. You feel the deep burn in your shoulders, your back, your legs, your joints ache, your muscles tremble with the effort. Every few feet, the sledge grinds to a halt. Men scramble forward, pouring water or fine sand beneath the runners to reduce friction, or inserting wooden levers to pry the sledge forward an inch at a time. This isn't a continuous ascent. It's a series of starts and stops, each restart requiring a fresh burst of superhuman effort. Imagine the sheer physical exhaustion, day in, day out, for weeks, months, years. Your body morphs into a tool, a sinewy, sun-hardened machine designed for one purpose: to pull. There's no gym membership here, no protein shakes, just grain, beer, and the sheer unyielding will to survive another day. The smell is overpowering, a potent mix of unwashed bodies, stale sweat, urine, and the faint sweet decay of refuse in the surrounding camps. It's the smell of humanity at its most raw, its most desperate, and its most resilient. The danger is ever present. You've seen it. A rope snaps, frayed by constant friction and the immense load. The block, suddenly uncontrolled, slides backwards, gathering momentum, a stone avalanche of death. Men scatter, screaming, but not always fast enough. The sickening crunch of bone, the cries of agony, the sudden, terrible silence that follows. These are the chilling realities of the job. You've seen men crushed between shifting blocks, plummet from great heights, or suffer horrific injuries from falling tools or stones. There are no safety nets, no hard hats, no modern medical facilities beyond a rudimentary first aid administered by the camp physicians. A serious injury often means a slow, agonizing death, or a life forever crippled, relegated to the fringes of the labor force. The pharaoh needs his pyramid, and individual lives, while not entirely expendable, are certainly secondary to the grand divine purpose. As the pyramid grows higher, the problems multiply. The ramps become longer, the haul distances increase. The amount of material needed to build and maintain the ramps themselves becomes astronomical. Furthermore, the higher you go, the more difficult it is to maneuver the massive blocks into their precise positions. You see skilled masons, their eyes sharp, their movements precise, guiding the final placement of a block. They use levers, their bodies pressed against the cold stone, grunting commands as small teams of men adjust the block millimeter by painstaking millimeter. The precision required is astonishing. Each block must fit snugly against its neighbors, leaving no space for weakness, This isn't rough construction. This is fine masonry on a colossal scale. The sound of stone scraping against stone, a high-pitched shriek that vibrates through your bones, signals the final, agonizing adjustments. A slip here, a slight misjudgment, and the entire block could tumble, undoing weeks of work and endangering everyone below. The overseers stand by, their whips occasionally cracking, but more often their voices are hoarse from constant shouting, directing, coordinating the hundreds of moving parts in this human-powered construction ballet. Consider the time spent just in placement, a single course of stones around the entire perimeter of the pyramid, especially in the lower sections, might contain hundreds or thousands of blocks. Each one had to be hauled up the ramp, moved horizontally to its exact position, and then meticulously placed, even with thousands of men working simultaneously on different sections. The sheer volume of blocks and the meticulous nature of the work meant that raising the pyramid by just one course could take days, if not weeks. And the Great Pyramid, for example, is composed of over 200 courses. This wasn't a sprint. It was a marathon of unimaginable length and difficulty. And then there's the top. The capstone, often made of a special, gleaming stone. Sometimes even electrum, an alloy of gold and silver, had to be placed. How did they get something so precious, and often so large, to the very pinnacle of the pyramid, hundreds of feet in? The air, the final sections of the ramp would have been incredibly steep, or perhaps a complex system of levers and temporary scaffolding, all built with the same primitive tools and raw human power. The precision required for that final act, the symbolic crowning of the pharaoh's eternal home, would have been immense, a moment of profound religious and engineering significance. You imagine the collective sigh of relief, the roar of triumph, when that capstone finally settled into place. Decades after the first block was qua, this constant battle against gravity, against the sheer inertia of millions of tons of stone, was the central, agonizing reason for the protracted construction period. It wasn't about a lack of will or effort. It was about the fundamental physics of moving unimaginable weight with incredibly limited technology. Every inch of vertical progress represented thousands of man-hours, hundreds of injuries, and the relentless, unforgiving grind of human existence tethered to a divine purpose. You stand there, dust in your hair, sweat stinging your eyes, and realize that every single stone in that monumental edifice is a silent scream of effort, a testament to the unyielding power of an ancient vision and the terrifying resilience of the human spirit. You are not just building a tomb, you are building an entire mountain, one agonizing, sweat-drenched block at a time, each lift a defiance of the very forces of nature. The stone's journey, from quarry to construction site, a saga of sweat and grime. You wipe a bead of sweat from your brow, feeling the grit of the desert settle into the creases of your skin, a constant companion. The sun, a malevolent eye in the vast blue, beats down mercilessly, turning the very air into a tangible, shimmering entity. You've moved from the planning committees. Thankfully, you weren't a scribe. Your handwriting is terrible, to the brutal front lines of resource extraction. This is where the raw, unadulterated muscle of Egypt is unleashed, where the earth is literally ripped apart by human hands. The journey of a single stone, from its slumbering place within the earth to its final, exalted position in the pharaoh's eternal mountain, was a saga of Herculean effort that would break most modern humans in a single afternoon. And remember, we're talking about millions of these stones, each one weighing anywhere from 2.5 tons, the size of a small SUV, to 80 tons, the weight of a fully loaded, Boeing 737 for the granite blocks in the King's Chamber. This wasn't like ordering bricks from a supplier. This was a geological assault, a relentless, bone-wearing dance with the unyielding earth. First, the quarry, Tura, the legendary source of the fine white limestone that would form the pyramids. Dazzling outer casing, a finish so brilliant it would have reflected the sun like a beacon across the desert. The rock face towers above you, a sheer cliff of pale stone. You witness the initial stage, identifying the desired layer, usually a massive seam of homogeneous limestone. There are no dynamite charges here, no diamond-tipped saws roaring through. The rock, your tools are painfully primitive. Copper chisels, wooden mallets, and dolerite pounders, hard. Spherical stones used to batter and chip away at the surrounding rock. You watch as workers meticulously carve grooves into the rock face, defining the dimensions of the future block. They chip away at the top and sides, a process that takes days, sometimes weeks, for a single large block. Imagine swinging a heavy dolerite hammer repeatedly, hour after hour, under that scorching sun. The fine white dust clinging to your sweat-soaked skin, clogging your nostrils, coating your throat. The sound is a dull, rhythmic thud, thousands of hammers striking rock, a percussive symphony of human endurance. The air is thick with dust, tasting of stone and ancient effort. Your muscles ache, a deep, pervasive burn that never truly leaves. This isn't a job. It's a sentence, a divine imposition. Once the block is mostly isolated, a series of wedges, usually made of dry wood, are inserted into the grooves. Water is then poured over these wedges. You can almost hear the wood groaning as it slowly, inexorably absorbs the moisture, expanding with immense force, eventually cracking the rock along the pre-scored lines. The sound of a massive stone block finally separating from the bedrock is less a triumphant roar and more a deep, resonant groan, a sigh of geological surrender. It's an incredibly slow, methodical process, requiring immense patience and a precise understanding of the rock's natural fault lines and cleavage planes. A miscalculation, a poorly placed wedge, and the block could split imperfectly, rendering it useless, forcing weeks of work to be abandoned. You feel the frustration, the sheer crushing disappointment when a beautifully cut block shatters, knowing the entire process must begin anew. Now, freed from the quarry face, the rough block isn't ready. It needs to be dressed, its surfaces smoothed and trued to rough dimensions. More chiseling, more pounding, more endless, monotonous work under the unblinking eye of the sun. The waste rock piles up, forming new mountains of debris around the quarry, monuments to the stone that didn't make the cut. Each block, once roughly shaped, still weighs tons, and this is where the real fun begins, getting it from the quarry to the Nile. You are now part of a team, a human draft animal. The block is carefully lowered onto a sturdy wooden sledge, a simple platform designed to slide over the ground. But this isn't a smooth, paved road. This is rough, uneven desert terrain. You see workers, often numbering in the dozens, sometimes hundreds, for the larger blocks, harnessed to thick ropes woven from papyrus or flax. You grab your own segment of rope, feeling the coarse fibers bite into your already raw hands. The command is given, a guttural chant from an overseer, and you pull. With every fiber of your being, you strain. Your feet sink into the soft sand, the grit grinding into your sandals, or perhaps your bare feet. Your muscles scream in protest. The sledge, despite the lubrication of water or perhaps a thin layer of fine sand poured in front of it to reduce friction, moves with agonizing slowness. Every few feet, it grinds to a halt, sinking into the uneven ground. You watch as men scramble, jamming planks beneath the runners, levering the block forward an inch at a time. The air is filled with the grunts of exertion, the rhythmic shouts of the overseers, and the mournful creak of straining wood and rope. The smell of sweat is overwhelming, acrid, mixing with the dust and the faint scent of human waste from the crowded camps. This isn't a short distance. The Tora quarries are miles from the Giza Plateau. Imagine dragging a small car by hand across miles of sand, uphill in places, under a desert sun, with no breaks except for the brief, precious moments when the sledge jams. The journey could take days, even weeks, for a single block. Your body becomes a machine, an extension of the rope and the stone. Your mind, in self-preservation, might begin to shut down, focusing only on the next step, the next pull, the next command. You're a cog in a massive, living mechanism, your individuality subsumed by the collective effort. The physical toll is immense. Dehydration is a constant threat, heat stroke a common killer, broken bones, crushed limbs from shifting, stones, ruptured organs from the strain. These are not rare occurrences. They are the daily risks of your existence. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, the block reaches the banks of the Nile, the river, a cool, life-giving ribbon in the otherwise barren landscape, offers a brief respite. Here, the larger blocks are transferred onto barges, specifically designed flat-bottomed boats capable of carrying immense loads. You help guide the block down specially constructed ramps, the danger palpable as tons of stone inch towards the water's edge. A slip here, a moment of inattention, and the block could plunge into the river, lost to the currents, or worse, crush anyone in its path. The barges themselves aren't motorized. They are either poled along the shallow parts, or, more commonly, guided by sails when the prevailing winds are favorable, or, for upstream travel, towed by teams of men or oxen from the riverbanks. The journey across the Nile to the Giza side, while seemingly short, is still subject to the whims of nature. Unfavorable winds, strong currents, or unexpected floods could delay a shipment of essential stones for days, even weeks. You see the frustration etched on the faces of the overseers when the wind dies, knowing that hundreds of workers on the plateau are waiting for these very stones, their progress stalled, their precious time wasted. Once on the Giza side, the blocks face another arduous journey, from the river landing to the construction site on the plateau. This is often an uphill climb, requiring even greater effort. You join the pulling teams again, the ropes cutting into your shoulders, your muscles screaming in renewed protest. The ramps leading up to the plateau are constantly being maintained, leveled, and extended as the pyramid grows. This isn't a one-time build. It's an evolving infrastructure that demands constant attention and a colossal amount of additional labor and materials. Each individual step in this chain, quarrying, dressing, transporting to the Nile, barging, transporting to the site, was a multi-day, often multi-week process for a single block. Multiply that by millions of blocks, and you begin to grasp the astronomical time commitment. There were no forklifts, no cranes, no trucks, no trains. Every ounce of effort was derived from human muscle, human ingenuity, and human suffering. This was a war against inertia, against gravity, against time itself, fought one agonizing inch at a time. You realize that the grandeur of the pyramids isn't just in their scale, but in the untold, unsung stories of the millions of individual struggles, the countless moments of despair and triumph that went into forging each stone's slow, brutal journey from the heart of the earth to its resting place in eternity. You are a part of that journey, your own sweat and blood mingling with the dust of ages, an anonymous participant in a saga that defined an empire. The human engine, life, death, and the daily grind of the builders, more than slaves you, peel yourself off the rough mat you call a bed. The early morning chill still biting, despite the promise of another scorching day. Your muscles ache, a deep, pervasive soreness that is now just a permanent part of your existence. Your hands, once soft, are now thick with calluses, permanently scarred from ropes and stone. You cough, a dry, dusty hack, and spit onto the dirt floor of your cramped dwelling. This is your life, day in, day out, for years, perhaps decades. This is the human engine that powered the creation of the pyramids, and it's a story far more complex, and in many ways more chilling, than the simple narrative of slaves often bandied about. You are not a chattel slave in the Hollywood sense, bound by chains and fed on scraps. You are an Egyptian citizen, a farmer, a craftsman, a conscripted laborer. Your duty to the pharaoh, a living god, is paramount. During the annual inundation of the Nile, when the floodwaters covered the fertile fields, rendering farming impossible for several months, you, along with tens of thousands of your countrymen, are called upon. This isn't entirely forced in the brutal, coercive way we understand slavery. It's a civic and religious obligation deeply ingrained in the fabric of your society. You are paid for your labor, not with coin, money as we know it doesn't exist yet, but with rations, grain which can be made into bread and beer, the staples of your diet, and sometimes fish or a bit of meat. These are valuable commodities, sustaining your family back home and yourself here in the immense sedentary city of the pyramid builders. Your living conditions are rough, but surprisingly organized. You live in a purpose-built settlement, a sprawling city of mud brick barracks, laid out in neat, grid-like patterns. You share a small room with several other men, the air thick with the smell of unwashed bodies, stale beer, and the ever-present dust. Your days are dictated by the sun and the overseer's whistle. Before dawn, you're up. A meager breakfast of bread and beer, then out to the site. The workday is relentless, typically from sunrise to sunset, with only short breaks for water and food. You are assigned to a gang, a team of perhaps 20 men, working together on a specific task, quarrying, dragging blocks, building ramps, or preparing the site. The work is physically brutal, repetitive, and mentally numbing. You haul, you lift, you chip, you pull. The sun bakes your skin, turning it to leather. The dust gets into everything: your eyes, your nose, your throat, your food. Your clothes, simple linen kilts, are constantly soaked with sweat, then stiff with dried salt and dirt. The hierarchy is clear. At the top, the master architects and engineers, priests who understand the divine geometry. Below them, the scribes and overseers, managing logistics and demanding progress. And then you, the vast, anonymous labor force, the muscle of the empire. While not slaves, life for you is certainly not easy. The constant physical exertion takes its toll. Injuries are common: sprains, broken bones from falling rocks or crushing accidents, deep cuts from tools. There are no advanced medical treatments. Camp physicians, skilled in basic surgery, bone setting, and herbal remedies. Do their best, but often a serious injury means permanent disability or death. You've seen comrades fall, their bodies swiftly removed, replaced by another anonymous face in the endless stream of labor. The dead are often buried near the site, a silent testament to the human cost of these monumental achievements. Disease is another constant threat. The crowded living conditions, the rudimentary sanitation, the limited understanding of hygiene, these create a fertile ground for epidemics. Dysentery, parasites, respiratory illnesses from the dust. These sweep through the camps, thinning the ranks. The quality of food, while provided, can vary. A bad harvest or logistical snafus can mean reduced rations, leading to malnutrition and further weakening the workers, making them more susceptible to illness and injury. You learn to be resourceful, to guard your rations, to avoid the sick, to somehow, against all odds, survive. Yet despite the hardship, there is a complex social fabric within the camps. You form bonds with your gang members, a camaraderie born of shared suffering. You celebrate small victories, the successful placement of a particularly difficult block, the end of a long, arduous shift. There is a sense of purpose, too, however, grand and distant it might feel. You are building not just a tomb, but a pathway to eternity for your divine ruler, ensuring the stability and prosperity of your land. This belief, this deeply ingrained religious conviction, is a powerful motivator, a psychological lubricant that allows you to endure the unbearable. Skilled craftsmen, stonemasons, carpenters, potters, metalworkers occupy a slightly higher rung. They are permanent residents of the pyramid city, not just seasonal laborers. Their skills are invaluable, and their work is more refined, though still physically demanding. They are responsible for the fine finishing of the casing stones, the intricate carving of the internal chambers, the construction of the complex wooden sledges and levers. You admire their skill, their ability to transform raw stone into a thing of beauty, knowing that your own brute strength is merely the first step in that transformation. Their lives are still hard, but their status is higher, their living conditions slightly better, reflecting the value placed on their specialized expertise. The rhythm of life is deeply intertwined with the Nile cycles. The peak construction periods coincide with the flood season, when the farmers are available. During the dry season, when the fields demand attention, the workforce shrinks significantly, slowing down the pace of construction. This cyclical nature of the labor force is a fundamental reason for the prolonged construction times. You can't just keep tens of thousands of men on site year-round without crippling the agricultural economy that feeds the entire nation. So, work pauses, or slows to a crawl during crucial farming seasons, only to ramp up again when the waters rise. This ebb and flow of human power adds years, even decades, to the overall project duration. Think about the psychological toll, the sheer scale of the project, the seemingly endless nature of the work, the slow, agonizing progress. You are a small, insignificant part of a massive, generations-long endeavor. Your father might have worked on the lower courses, and your son might work on the higher ones. You might live your entire adult life under the shadow of the rising pyramid, seeing it grow incrementally, day by day, year by year, never knowing if you will live to see its completion. The constant pressure, the threat of injury or disease, the unending physical grind. It's a form of mental fortitude that few modern humans could ever comprehend. The logistical challenge of feeding, watering, housing, and managing such a vast, transient population for such an extended period is mind-boggling. Every tool had to be crafted, maintained, and replaced. Every pound of food had to be cultivated, harvested, transported, and distributed. Every worker had to be accounted for, their tasks assigned, their progress monitored. This wasn't just a construction site. It was a complex, self-sustaining society that existed solely for the purpose of building a single structure. And you, the human engine, are at its very heart. Your life a testament to the immense, enduring power of collective will, harnessed by the divine authority of the Pharaoh to achieve the seemingly impossible. Your daily grind, your sweat, your pain, your brief moments of camaraderie, these are the true foundations of the pyramids, far more than any stone or ramp. You are more than a slave. You are the silent, enduring soul of an empire's greatest ambition. The Pharaoh's purse and the empire's burden, economics of eternity. You find yourself for a fleeting moment in a scribe's tent, the cool interior, a welcome reprieve from the relentless sun. The air here is thick with the scent of papyrus, ink, and human concentration. You watch a scribe, his hand moving with practiced fluidity, recording endless columns of figures, bushels of grain, numbers of cattle, reams of linen, quotas of labor. This isn't just about moving stones, it's about moving an entire national economy, redirecting the wealth and resources of a nascent empire towards a single, audacious goal. This is where you truly understand why the pyramids took so long, the sheer, unimaginable economic and administrative burden they placed on an entire civilization. Building a pyramid wasn't just a construction project. It was the ultimate national investment, a generations-long drain on the kingdom's resources that would make even the most ambitious modern infrastructure project blanch. Think about the sheer volume of payment in kind. The primary currency of ancient Egypt was grain, barley, and emmer wheat. Every laborer, every overseer, every craftsman, every soldier guarding the site, every administrator, every support worker had to be fed. Tens of thousands of mouths for decades. This meant that a significant portion of Egypt's agricultural output, its very lifeblood, had to be earmarked for the pyramid builders. You observed the endless convoys of boats arriving at the pyramid city's docks during the harvest season, laden with sacks of grain destined for the massive granaries that serve the construction site. These granaries are not just storage facilities, they are economic hubs, managed by an army of scribes and administrators, meticulously tracking every incoming bushel, every outgoing ration. A bad harvest, a dip in the Nile's flood levels, a period of political instability that disrupts trade or agriculture. Any of these could directly impact the pyramid project, slowing it down or even grinding it to a halt as the critical supply of food for the workforce dwindled. The project was inextricably linked to the prosperity and stability of the entire kingdom. When the granaries were full, work progressed. When they were empty, men starved, and the stones remained stubbornly. On the ground, beyond food, there were other staggering costs. Tools, for instance. Copper chisels were essential, but copper wasn't found in abundance in Egypt. It had to be mined in the Sinai Peninsula, a dangerous and resource-intensive endeavor requiring expeditions, smelting operations, and the constant crafting and resharpening of countless tools. Think of the number of chisels that would wear out, break, or be lost over decades of pounding rock. Each tool represented a significant investment of raw material, labor, and logistics. Wooden sledges, levers, rollers, and even the simple wooden Mallets wood was a precious commodity in ancient Egypt, imported from places like Lebanon for cedar, or grown locally with effort. The constant need for these materials placed a heavy demand on trade routes and resource allocation, diverting precious resources from other potential uses. Then there's the sheer administrative overhead. To manage tens of thousands of workers, feed them, house them, provide them with tools, assign their tasks, and keep meticulous records required a vast, sophisticated bureaucracy. You see scribes who do nothing but track tool usage, others who manage the granaries, still others who oversee the movement of labor gangs. This administrative apparatus, itself a significant consumer of resources, food, papyrus, ink, skilled personnel, had to be maintained for the entire duration of the project. It was essentially a government within a government, all dedicated to the pyramid. The larger the project, the more complex and unwieldy this bureaucracy became, leading to potential inefficiencies and slowdowns. The pharaoh's political will was the ultimate fuel for this economic engine. Building a pyramid wasn't just about religious belief. It was a potent demonstration of the pharaoh's absolute power and his ability to command the resources of the entire nation. It was a massive propaganda piece, cementing his divine status, and inspiring awe and perhaps a healthy dose of fear among his subjects in neighboring kingdoms. But maintaining that political will, that unwavering focus, for multiple decades, across the reigns of potentially several pharaohs, was incredibly challenging. Imagine a pharaoh ascending to the throne and inheriting a half-finished pyramid. Does he continue his predecessor's work, pouring vast resources into a project that won't bear his name? Or does he start his own, a new testament to his own divinity, further draining the state coffers and creating multiple, incomplete pyramid projects across the landscape? This was a real dilemma, and it's another reason for the prolonged construction. Political shifts, internal conflicts, external threats, or even a pharaoh dying prematurely could drastically alter the course, speed, or even the completion of a pyramid. Some pyramids, you learn, were indeed abandoned or drastically scaled down mid-construction due to such factors, becoming forlorn monuments to dashed ambition. Consider the societal cost. While many workers were compensated with rations, the sheer scale of conscripted labor meant that tens of thousands of able-bodied men were diverted from other productive activities in the economy, from farming more land, building other infrastructure, or engaging in specialized crafts. This massive redirection of human capital, while religiously motivated, still represented a significant opportunity cost for the overall development of the kingdom. The pyramid wasn't just built with stones. It was built with the deferred dreams and missed opportunities of an entire generation. You watch as the supply lines extend further and further as the pyramid grows, increasing the logistical complexity and cost. Quarries might become depleted, forcing new ones to be opened further away, increasing transport times and expenses. Specialized materials, like the granite for the burial chambers, came from Aswan, hundreds of miles upriver. The transport of these massive granite blocks, each weighing many tens of tons, was an undertaking that could take months, involving fleets of barges and hundreds of highly skilled workers. The cost of just these specialized elements was astronomical, requiring immense planning and sustained financial commitment. The ongoing maintenance of the vast construction site itself was another hidden economic drain. The constant rebuilding and extension of the ramps, the maintenance of the workers' villages, the provisioning of water to the site in a parched desert environment, All these required continuous labor and resources. It wasn't just about building the pyramid. It was about maintaining the entire ecosystem that surrounded its construction for decades. So, when you reflect on the longevity of these projects, understand that it wasn't just about raw muscle. It was about the staggering economic burden that forced a nation to marshal its entire wealth, its human capital, its administrative genius, and its unwavering belief for generations. It was about the delicate balance between the pharaoh's ambition and the kingdom's capacity, a balance that could be easily tipped by a bad harvest, a political upheaval, or the untimely death of a ruler. The pyramids stand not just as monuments to the pharaohs, but as monumental testaments to the economic might, the administrative sophistication, and the sheer, sustained will of an entire civilization, which painstakingly funded, provisioned, and managed these colossal projects, one grain ration, one copper chisel, and one decade at a time. The slow pace was not just a result of primitive tools. It was a reflection of the immense, almost crippling, strain these eternal projects placed on the very fabric of ancient Egyptian society. Segment 6. Time's relentless march. Why decades, not years? The unseen forces of delay you stand before. The completed pyramid, a colossal triangle of stone that now dominates the horizon. The relentless sun gleams off its polished white casing stones, a dazzling beacon against the azure sky. The air, once thick with the shouts of overseers and the thud of hammers, is now hushed, holding only the whispering wind. The work is done, but it took generations, decades. Why? Why couldn't this monumental feat of engineering, this ultimate expression of power and faith, be accomplished in a mere handful of years? You've seen the sweat, tasted the dust, felt the ache in your bones. But now it's time to synthesize these experiences and truly grasp the invisible forces that stretched these projects across the unforgiving canvas of time. Firstly, let's revisit the fundamental technological limitations. You've experienced it firsthand. There were no internal combustion engines, no cranes, no power tools. Every single action, quarrying, cutting, shaping, transporting, lifting, and setting millions of multi-ton blocks, was performed by human and animal muscle, aided by simple levers, ropes, and sledges. The sheer inefficiency of this method, by modern standards, is staggering. A single action that takes minutes today would have taken hours or days back then. Multiply that by millions of actions, and the numbers become astronomical. The physics of moving such immense weight with such primitive tools inherently dictated a slow, methodical pace. You couldn't simply speed up the process without shattering tools, breaking ropes, or, more likely, breaking the men themselves. The pace was set by the maximum sustainable output of a human body under extreme conditions, and that pace is agonizingly slow.